Hi everybody! As you can see, I'm going to be aiming for something a little bit different today, and I have actually changed my plan. This is actually different than what I originally planned to be filming today. I will be working in Colouring Heaven yet again, another Colouring Heaven, but I'm sure we've all got many issues of Colouring Heaven, and we do have to colour in them at some point, so I figured, yeah, let's be using some of those Colouring Heavens today. And my original plan for today was to use the most recent issue of Colouring Heaven, which is this one, the Halloween special, with lots of different artists in that one. And the first couple of pictures I will show you quite briefly. The first few pictures in the magazine are these sheets with like 6 different mini pictures in. And what I was going to do was just choose different random colour palettes from this book that I managed to find in a charity shop recently, which has loads of different random colour palettes in it. See there, lots of different random colour palettes. So I was going to colour those little mini pictures with some of those random colour palettes. But then I thought, go big or go home. If you're going to go random, go completely random. So what I thought is I've brought up a random number generator here on my little tablet. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to randomize the issue of Colouring Heaven that I will use. Even if it's one that I'm really not a fan of, I will try and use that one. I'm going to use the random generator to pick which page because they are all numbered, usually from 1 to 40, but this one is 1 to 48. And I will pick the issue starting with the Alice special because that's the first I actually got on my subscription. That is number 56. That is the most recent one, which is number 119. So I keep knocking the camera, I do apologise. And that is number 119, the most recent issue. So I will use the generator to pick an issue, use the generator to pick a page. I will use the generator to pick a page from this colour palette book. And as each page has 5 colour palettes on it, I will again use it to pick the colour palette. And then I have written a little list. I've written a little list of art supplies here. I've kept it pretty brief. I did add in a couple more on the bottom, but I was really not feeling in the mood to be colouring with those today. So I've kept it to 1 for coloured pencil, 2 for marker, 3 for watercolour, 4 for chalk pastel, 5 for paper collage, 6 for water-based markers, with number 2 being marker, that's alcohol marker there, number 2. And I will choose 2 of those to use in my image. So everything today will be completely randomly generated. I'm having to keep it to Colouring Heaven. Those are numbered, so that would make that really easy to pick which one to actually colour in. And as this is a spur of the moment idea, I didn't have time to write a list of all my colouring books to pick a colouring book that way, but that might be an idea for the future. So first of all, I will go ahead and I will see which issue of Colouring Heaven I will be colouring in today. And this is all, I'm going to have to keep this completely unedited apart from me dashing off to find this actual issue. So number generator minimum is 56, did we say? And yep, 56. And the maximum is 119. Try and get that on camera. I don't know if we can focus in on that on camera. You can see that, yeah, minimum 56, maximum 119, and go. Oops, why has that not worked? Oh yes, it has worked. 98. You can tell I do not do this very often. It has worked. 98 there. I will probably edit out that little bit where I wasn't quite sure what was going on. There will be a little bit of a cut there probably, but yeah, that is totally what it has actually come up with is number 98. So I will have to go off now and find issue number 98. So again, there will be a little bit of a cut here. Okay, I'm back. The lighting might have changed a little bit there because I did manage to knock off the colour balance as I was coming back into position here. But I've searched through my back issues of Colouring Heaven and issue 98. This is issue 98, if I can zoom in on that. Not sure if that will focus, but this is 98. This is Little Cuties. There we go. Little Cuties Special by Darius Sakisoy. So that is the issue we're going to be working on today. Yep, had to adjust the lighting again to actually focus. So yeah, this introduction is going to be a bit of a hot mess, but it's completely off the cuff, completely random, and that will probably prove that it actually is. I have not organised any of this at all, but this is the issue we're going to be working on, and that's pretty good because it is one of the issues that I do actually like, so that's a good start. So I'll clear away the other couple of editions I have here. I will start looking for our colour palettes. Okay, I'll leave that there in the middle. That's the one that the generator picked. Now, how to figure out which colour palette to be picking. I think pages are numbered in this book. Yes, they are numbered in this book. So I figured the best idea is to figure out where the colour palettes actually start. I think they end at 143 there, so that will be my maximum number. And then once we have a page number, if it's a page that has colour palettes on it, that's what we'll go for. If it isn't, I'll roll again. So let's see where the palettes actually start. Okay, it starts there on number 18. So that's going to be the first number that we pick, 18. And the last number is going to be 143. Again, there might be a little bit of adjusting of the colour there while I zoom in on the number generator. Let's see what we can do here. It was 18. Let me zoom in so you can see, no cheating here. Is that working? Yep, 18 there. And for the max, we will go for 143. And if this turns out to be a page with colour palettes on it, we will pick one of those. Let us see. And I'll try not to cut any of this out. We do want to be not cheating here, not cheating at all. This is all as it's happened. There we go. 87. So let's see what page 87 will be giving us. 90. Oh, 87 is a page with colour palettes. That's quite interesting. If I zoom out again. This is page 87 here. Yep, those are some pretty subdued kind of colour palettes we have going on there. So hopefully I'll be able to find some actual colours that match with these colour palettes. And I haven't actually picked a page from the magazine to be doing yet, but going for colour palettes first. Okay, I'll carry on with that. So we have 5 colour palettes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll zoom us in again on the number generator and we will pick a colour palette. Again. We're on screen there. There we go. Might be a little bit out of focus, but we are on screen just to show no cheating here. So minimum would be 1, maximum would be 5. Minimize the keyboard. That might actually help with actually seeing what number we end up with. And generate. Number 3. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3. So this one here. Number 3, if I zoom out again, let me see. Yep, number 3 on the page, 1, 2, 3. So this is the colour palette I'm going to be using. Very kind of retro style colour palette there, but that's what we're going to be going for. That's interesting. All right then, I'm going to leave that out so I do actually know what colour palette I'm going to be going for. And back to the magazine. I was all excited to get this idea going and everything's all out of order, but for the number of page, this one is numbered from 1 to 40. There we go, number 40 at the end there. And I have coloured a couple of them, so if I do roll a number that I have already coloured, I will re-roll again. Back we go to our number generator. Apologies for the neighbours. Whoops. There we go. Apologies for the neighbours and for my being completely inept with technology. So now with our number generator, we will be picking it from well, 1 is actually coloured, so I will pick 2. Max is 40. Minimize the keyboard and then go. It would be a lot easier. Minimum 2, max 40, result 2. Okay, so number 2. I have a coloured number 2. That lady is number 1. This lady is number 2. Okay. Here we go with number 2. And again, let me just adjust the brightness. Okay, after showcasing my complete ineptitude with technology there, we've adjusted the contrast and colour again. Hopefully you can see that this lady is number 2. And number 1 there, she is actually already coloured. That's why I didn't include number 1 in my search. So this is the lady we're going to be colouring with this colour palette. But what art materials are we going to be using? We will be using 2 different art materials. I do have a list of 6 here. Back to my list of 6 there. Again, zooming in, so I'll probably mess up the brightness and all that kind of stuff. We have coloured pencil, alcohol marker, watercolour, chalk pastel, paper collage and water-based markers. I'm going to be choosing 2 of those. Just in case I end up with something that's really hard to colour a whole picture with, I thought if I use 2, yeah, it might be a little bit easier. And as I said, these 2 at the bottom, that was drawing pencils, just the normal grey graphite pencils, and that was ballpoint pen, but I'm really not in the mood to be colouring with those, and my challenge, my rules, so I have left those out. And I'm just going to be going from these 6 here. So again, we come in with the number generator. So it will make for an interesting colouring session today. Minimum 1, maximum 6, generate number 4, which is chalk pastel. Okay, interesting. And generate number 1, chalk pastel and coloured pencil. Okay, everything's sorted. This will be an interesting session, but fun. And then I figured it would really be a way to get me to colour in issues that I hadn't really looked at before, although we did end up with an issue that I have coloured in before, unfortunately. But I'll zoom us back out again. There we go. It does take my little notebook out of focus. I've been having to zoom in and out and really showing how inept I am. But yeah, that is what we are doing. We are using the coloured pencils. Random pencil here, we're using the coloured pencils and the chalk pastels. So okay, everything is all set. That is what we are going to be using. And as we've already come pretty far into this video, I'd better get ahead and get started on my actual colouring. I'll try and pick out a few different colours that I think match with our colour palette there, which again was this one here. So I'll sort out all my supplies and I'll get started. Okay, my screen will probably be looking really cluttered right now, but I've had to get out my, or at least my 2 main sets of chalk pastels. I have these 2 here. This one I got from a charity shop a couple of years ago. I'm not exactly sure what kind of brand or anything those are, but I've picked a few from those, and those are more the solid, and not broken in that sense. They're not broken, more well looked after. I've picked up a few from that set. I've also picked up a couple from this set, which is one I got from a job lot of kind of colouring supplies on eBay. So these ones are not as well looked after, as we can see there. I have cleaned them up as best as I could when I actually bought them, but yeah, they're not as well looked after. Those, they're rather smaller and broken, but I've picked up a few from each set. I've actually put some paper down in the background there as well, because chalk pastels, they do tend to get a little bit messy, unfortunately. They are really fun to use, but as you can see from my hands there, just from testing out these colours, they're very messy. They are super fun, but very messy. I've tried out a few colours there on the edge of this piece of scrap paper, just to try and get something like that kind of colour scheme. I had a little bit of trouble looking for this, a kind of olivey, very light olivey green. When I zoom in, we'll be able to see that kind of olivey green. I couldn't really find that in the chalk pastels, but I've picked out all the other colours as far as I could. So I will zoom us in, maybe zoom us in and show you those colours on this kind of cleaner bit of scrap paper here. We can hopefully see those colours a little bit better there. I think these numbers at the sides here, those are hex codes for anybody using a digital design or anything like that, as this is a book that's meant for graphic designers, but I figured with all these colour palettes I could maybe use it for my colouring, and it, yep, seems to work so far. And for that first colour there, I've picked out this kind of teal, very light teal colour. I think we need to zoom out a little bit more there so we can actually see. Yeah, that first colour is that light teal colour. For the dark green, we have this sort of teal green there. We have, this is the closest I could find to that kind of olivey green, which is more of a yellow ochre, but I think we'll be able to work with it. Then we have a kind of sienna brown, sort of terracotta brown, which I've picked out this one. Then we've got this yellow, this number 50 yellow there. I've picked out that one. And of course we have black. So that is the colour palette with the chalk pastels that I will be using. We are slightly off camera there. But those are the colours we will be using. So we'll move on to the picture now. And I figured I would use these chalk pastels as my base. Instead of using the alcohol markers that I usually use as my kind of base, I will use these chalk pastels as the base and then shade those on top with kind of corresponding pencils. So then we are sticking to our version of that colour palette. We have adjusted it slightly because of the medium I'm using. It's quite hard to find these exact shades with the chalk pastels. So we'll get this out of the way and we'll get on to basing our picture. I've decided not to bring in any skin tones as such, so it was dependent on which colour palette we did pick out as to what kind of colours we would be able to use. So I'm going to stick to these colours and maybe bring in some darker shades with the pencils. Also, if needed, I'll be bringing in the eraser, and I am going to allow myself to use the white gel pen, as that seems to be a little bit of a staple when I am colouring. I do tend to use the white gel pen. So those are the colours we are going to be using, and I'll move on to the picture now after washing my hands. Okay, looking at our picture now there. I was thinking maybe of using this sort of sienna brown to give her a darker skin tone, but looking at the picture now, we do have these cherries here that she seems to be using. I'm not sure what the title of the picture is, but it just seems to have these cherries that are quite prominent. So I'm thinking those should probably be that sienna colour, being the kind of warmest, most nearest colour to the red of the cherries. So I'd maybe stick with that for the cherries. And maybe that's where we should start, maybe just doing the cherries there with the sienna brown and kind of build up on that. My usual strategy, find something that I do know the colour that I want to be using and maybe build on that. So our light will be coming from the right because this is a sort of 3/4 view with our head slightly turned away, and that's where I like to have my light sort of coming from. So I'm going to go in with this sort of sienna brown, keep the cherries on the warmer side, and then blend out these chalk pastels with the cotton bud, or Q-tip they're actually called in America. I've remembered that. Blend those out with the Q-tip. I've also brought in a tissue, just a Kleenex tissue, to do any blending or any smoothing out on the larger areas. I do want to try to leave some of the white paper to be a little bit of a highlight there on those cherries. My hands are going to be dusty again very, very soon. So I'm just going to blend out this kind of sienna brown a little bit. Trying to leave a space for highlights there. And hopefully I'll be able to find some colours to come in and shade these chalk pastels and keep in the same sort of colour palette, which is how I usually work with colour palettes. I pick the base colours, usually with alcohol markers, which is a bit easier to find shades to actually match colour palettes with. I didn't think this plan through, probably. I just thought, yeah, we'll just have some random art materials. I didn't think about matching to the colour palettes. I think we've done pretty well, and I'm going to run with it anyways, I think. And there we go, we're going to keep that brown to the cherries, I'm thinking. And as I'm not actually bringing in skin tone, because her skin, this is a portrait, so her skin is taking up a lot of the picture. So I thought bringing in some skin colour there, some skin tone, would be cheating very slightly. So I'm trying to stay away from the skin tone. We do already have the black, and I'm allowing myself to bring in white. If the skin was only a very small part of the picture, I think I'd make life a bit easier for myself and bring in a bit of a skin tone. But as the skin is a very large part of the picture there, then I figure, yeah, that might be cheating ever so slightly. So I will allow myself to go maybe slightly darker, slightly lighter than the colours that were actually in that little colour palette there. I'm not sure if anyone has the colour cube. At the moment, lots of people seem to be using the colour cube. Yeah, Sarah Rennie Clark is the colour cube, with lots of those random palettes in there. I'm not sure if you could kind of work this to choose a random palette from the colour cube. I don't know, I don't have one of those, but I picked up that book from a charity shop, which I thought might come in useful. And I've been planning a video to show the random palettes for quite some time, and as I said originally, I was going to go with those tiny little pictures in the front of the most recent issue, as yeah, I do have a lot of colouring heavens, and we do need to be actually colouring in them. So those are the cherries, and the colours we seem to have, we have two shades of the teal, We have the light teal and this kind of more greeny teal, and we have two shades, although one of these is supposed to be, this is supposed to be more of an olivey green. So I'm thinking what we should probably do is use one, either the yellow or the blue for her skin, and then the other set for her hair. Not sure entirely how that would work. And then what would we use for this little costume she has going on here? Not entirely sure with that. Bit of a conundrum. Oh, I think I have an idea. I might have an idea. Yes. This kind of thinking on the fly. I'm thinking maybe if we do this skin tone in this lighter teal and try and make sure we shade this fairly light. I'm just going to lay down some base colour as if I was using a marker. I'm just going to try and base her whole face with the lighter teal. Then her hair could be with the yellows, the ochre and the yellow, blending down into a kind of ombre with the darker teal here. And then we could bring in the yellow again for her costume. This is the idea. This kind of ribbon around the outside, not entirely sure. Maybe I'll bring in the black for a bit of background there. Maybe do a little bit of a bokeh effect, because yeah, that's pretty easy with chalk pastels. You just erase a few little circles in there. And I'm laying this down by shading the areas I would normally shade darkest on her face, to show her face has got a little bit of shape there, just in case the pastel marks, the kind of mark making we're doing, it doesn't blend out entirely, then any of these marks will be darker in the shadows, which is what we would be wanting anyways. I'm laying the colour down mainly in the darkest areas so we can blend it out towards the lightest areas, and then worry about the pencils when we're actually on the pencil layer. And mainly, I'm not sure I've mentioned it before, when you do use a limited palette, especially when this one is just 2 shades of the teal, 2 shades of the yellow. Basically it's just 2 colours with the sienna and the black added in. The main problem is making sure that 2 areas that are the same colour don't actually touch each other or come super close to each other, to make everything all the same colour. I think all the rest of that would be dress now. So should I shade that with the cotton bud? I'll use the other end of this. And yeah, the chalk pastels do make a lot of the dust. So you can see there we do have a lot of this dust, so we have to take a break from the colouring every now and then to like shake the dust off into the bin. Or somehow other ways get rid of it. That's why I've put the paper down on the desk. It does make a lot of mess. But with chalk pastel, especially if you're using it for basing, you can bring in the eraser and just tidy up any areas where you go over and you don't actually want to be. The string on this necklace I'm intending to be black, but I think doing that with pencils would be a lot easier. Okay, I've laid down that base with the teal chalk pastel there. I'm just going to go back and bring back a few little highlights. As I've said, the chalk pastel, it's quite easy to erase. We do need some lighter areas on her face there, especially on this side of her face where the light will be coming. So we'll just go over that and make sure we have some highlights still to come on her face. On her hand there. Okay, well that's a start. All right, so for her hair, I think I've decided that I'm going to go with the yellow, the lighter yellow that would be from the colour palette. On the top of her hair, I was thinking to use this lighter yellow. Blending down into maybe the darker teal, so that it does stand out from her skin. That should work quite nicely. We're going to bring the yellow in around the cherries, because I want this stem of the cherries, that's going to be the darker teal green, the more greeny sort of teal. I want to bring that in. So maybe down to about there with her hair. I think we can come with the yellow. And then I'm going to come in with the darker teal. Maybe try and blend those together in some sort of an ombre. If I can't do it with the chalk pastels, I will try and do that with the pencils, but we'll see what we can get going on. And we're definitely not going to be going super neat with this. Definitely not. a clean cotton bud, and we'll try and blend those colours together in some sort of ombre, coming down or trying to come down from the yellow into the green to give us a little smoother transition, or at least make this colour around the cherries a little bit more yellower so that the green of the stems might stand out somehow. And definitely slightly off with our line work there, but I think we can make it work. I'll give it a little hint of green, just where the kind of colours of our hair blend together there, because I want to make this stem of the cherry that darker green. This part of her hair, we just turn that Q-tip or cotton bud around to give us a clean, bit of a clean area. Okay, we're not looking too bad there. Just get rid of all that dust. And we'll go on and do the same on the other side. Give her the yellow at the top of her head and then move down to that darker teal. Maybe with the darker teal. Maybe coming up slightly higher that side because we don't have the cherries there to be worrying about too much. White gel pen can maybe come in and sort that out, I think, if we've gone over any lines that we shouldn't have. Which is again why I didn't really want to ban myself from using white gel pen. Especially with chalk pastels to tidy up those areas. That's going to be super handy. And again, I'm going to try and blend this up into the yellow, moving further up this time, moving from the green into the yellow this time. To try and blend that in. And swapping over to the yellow side of the cotton bud. Yeah, I've got some green coming in there. That's what I was afraid of. We do have some green coming in there, but we can work with it. Maybe get another entirely. Stay away from the green. Although once we do come in with the pencil shading, I'm pretty sure we can sort that out there. Get that hair blending in nicely. Okay, we're going to bring in this dark teal for our eyebrows, I think, just for a bit of fun. Maybe for her eyes. Should we bring that in for her eyes? Why not? Maybe kind of do the opposite we've got going on with the hair and put the yellow on the bottom. Just for fun. This whole colouring session is just for a little bit of fun. I'll blend that. Chalk pastels I'm just using as a base and to give some idea of where the pencil shading would actually go. Maybe instead of my usual grey, I could bring in this light teal to actually shade the white of her eye there, so that when we come in with the white highlights, that will be visible, standing out. For the pupils of her eyes here, those are not actually shaded at the moment. They're not coloured in, so I'm just going to do those with the black acrylic marker just to make sure those are really black. They weren't shaded originally, so I'm just going to pop those in with the black marker. I don't really have a very wide fine liner available at the moment. They're just my really fine liners, so black acrylic marker it is. That's working okay. I thought maybe we could bring in this sienna colour for her lips. That is our closest to red, is what we've used for the cherries, so yeah, I think maybe that should work. She does have some little freckles going on there, so I'm thinking maybe we can bring in a kind of sienna pencil, go over those and give her the little freckly face. These leaves I wanted to shade with the darker kind of teal. I might even bring in the lighter teal there, or the dark yellow maybe. I'll bring in the lighter teal. This kind of dark teal is very pigmented. You can tell it's from a different set of pastels. Okay, that's looking sort of how I envisioned it. And for a top here, Hopefully we're on camera with our top here. I was thinking of shading with this darker kind of ochre colour, which would be a very light olive green. If I actually had one, it would be a very light olive green. So I'm going to shade from this ochre colour down into the yellow. I think we might have a little bit of arm there, kind of underneath. So yeah, from that dark kind of ochre colour down into the softer yellow, I'm thinking. Just to keep the teal colour and the yellow colour for separate areas, to not have them having yellow skin and a yellow dress would be a little bit overwhelming with the yellow, I'm thinking. So yeah, we're keeping it. Trying to keep it to separate areas. And we do have some teal to come in behind there. This dark teal is, yeah, it's getting everywhere. It's coming into the top here. Again, hopefully we can sort that out with the pencils on top. I'm just going to make sure it is kind of obvious there's two colours in that actual top or dress there. So I'm coming in again with that darker one. We have some teal we need to bring in here for our skin tone underneath this. I think these are sleeves for top for our dress there. So we're going to bring that in. There we go, that's blending in that there. We need some more hair here that I've actually missed out that comes behind these cherries. And we'll just keep this all the darker teal green, I'm thinking. And hopefully you guys don't think that bringing in the marker for your pupils is cheating. It's the same colour from the colour palette, and doing it with pencil or chalk pastel really wouldn't have made those stand out. So yeah, a bit of an executive decision there, that we are going with the acrylic marker just to make that stand out. This little heart here could be the sienna brown that we're using for red. Okay, maybe black for the background. We'll see how that works. I'm not sure on this ribbon here. We can't really have it yellow. We can't have it sienna, or we can't have it green. Oh, that's slightly... We could just make the whole background black. Bring in our white, add a little bit of stars. Oh, no. Ideas on the fly here. So what I'm going to do with this background is start with the black. And all this I will be fixing before I move on to the pencils. And the idea is to have this black transition into the darker teal, a darker kind of teal green. Hopefully somehow. Give it a sort of galaxy effect, I was thinking, along those lines, and then maybe allow myself the white gel pen to come in and add a few little white stars there. Again, kind of maybe a little bit cheating, but yeah, we won't go there. Gonna make sure this black covers most of that area where we had the dark teal in her hair. Make sure the black is behind where that teal is in her hair. And the black would probably come further up on this side. It's kind of hard to see with this really kind of blunt pastel here. And then on into that dark teal. We could even get very ambitious and bring in the lighter teal. Wow, yeah. Pushing the boat out there. I'm going to try and blend that lighter teal into the darker teal. Which, yeah, originally they're not supposed to be teal colours, but we've kind of adapted their colour palette and kept as close to it as we could using the materials. So yeah, now we're using the dark teal and the light teal. Can we blend those together? I really need to wash my hands again. Okay. Starting, I think, from the light here, we're going to blend down into the darker colours to take the light into the dark, which is the plan. Probably won't work the way I intend it to. thinking maybe I should have just stuck to chalk pastels for the background or maybe pencils for the actual picture. That would have been a little more easier, but also a little bit more time consuming and possibly a lot less interesting for a video perspective. But trying to work with pastels instead of the markers as my base colour, I think, is a bit more of a challenge. So for this kind of swirl around the edge, I'm bringing in this sort of sienna brown here. And even though my kind of blending isn't going quite according to plan, I was hoping to have that sienna brown blend into this darker kind of ochre colour. And yep, the black will probably end up contaminating that a little bit, but the idea being that I don't really want that sienna brown to be coming behind these cherries. We want to be fading up into that kind of ochre colour here. I'm not sure if those kind of blobs on the frame there, whether those are meant to be cherries as well, but we can bring in the sienna brown there. Okay, so that is what we're working with. Then we do a little bit more smoothing with these chalk pastels. Then I will give them a little bit of fixative. And again, I'm using hairspray for my fixative at the moment because my actual proper Winsor & Newton fixative has run out. But you can use hairspray, although kind of at your own discretion really though, because I have heard that it causes yellowing to the paper over the course of time, over a few years. It might yellow your paper, although I have heard that the cheaper hairspray should be okay. It's the expensive ones that do the yellowing. I don't know. It's kind of a personal thing, I think. Whatever you think would work for your drawing, whether you don't mind if there is a chance of the yellowing coming in, which I personally don't really mind that chance, because for me, I think the colouring in is the whole point, having fun with the colouring in. So I don't really mind if my pages aren't made to stand the test of time. It's not a big concern of mine, so yeah, I'm happy to be using the hairspray, but it's entirely to your discretion, that one, I'm thinking. Okay, a little last minute tidying up of these edges. And yeah, she may be looking a little bit of a hot mess right now, a little bit like my introduction to this video. Completely unplanned, a little bit of a hot mess, but yeah. Let's see if we can clean her up, give it a little bit of a glow up, and elevate those chalk pastels when we bring in a little bit of pencil. So I'll just give her a little bit of a hairspray, make sure none of that chalk pastel is actually rubbing off. If there's any highlights now on top of that, it will be coming in with the white gel pen. We do have a little bit of black dust that's blown over the top of her hair here, so I'm just going to erase that before I go ahead and do a little bit of fixative. I'm going to erase that, reinforce that yellow colour, give us a nice little bit of a base going on there, hopefully. There we go, and that is what we will be working with. So I'll give her a little bit of a spraying. I'll go off and wash my hands, pick out a few pencils to do some shading, and then I'll be back with you. Okay, so I think that top layer of the hairspray now is dry, just to fix that chalk pastel and hopefully not rub it off too much on my hands. And what I've gone and done is just picked up one pencil that kind of corresponds to each of these colours of the chalk pastels that we were using, and just tried to go maybe a shade or two darker, so that I could bring in those pencils, do a little bit of shading on top. And I have been playing around here, just testing out a few different colours. I think I've got some picked out that I might be able to get to work. Yes, I am sticking with this yellow ochre colour rather than trying to go for the more light olivey green that we did have in the original colour palette, because I don't think I could have matched that with pencils either. So it's not the exact colour palette that was in the book, but it's very much along the same lines. Still a little bit of a challenge. These are the pencils that I've picked out. I have the Polychromos black there. The rest are all Arteza pencils. This one I believe is called Coyote, but the number and the name have worn off of that one. I'm pretty sure that one is Coyote. This one is Ginger A116. This one is a Passion Fruit Red, which I thought would work on top of that kind of slightly sienna brown there. And again, bringing a bit more of a red tone to make it more towards the cherry kind of colour. Cheating maybe very slightly, but still sticking to the spirit of the colour palette. For the light teal, I've brought in the turquoise. You can see I've started shading her skin there with that turquoise A604. And to shade on top of the dark teal, which was more of a very greeny teal in the actual colour palette, I've picked out jade green, which I think is working pretty well on top of the teal there. And I will be bringing in a white gel pen to add in a few highlights, especially down this side where we do have the light coming from. And yeah, I figured I'd go ahead and try using those. So here we go. I'm thinking first maybe I should try smoothing out this background and getting this background actually working. And it seems like I forgot to blend this side of the chalk pastel, so we can work on that with the pencils. And I'm hoping to get maybe a kind of a galaxy effect going on here for the background. So maybe coming in with a bit of green under there, maybe, or the lighter turquoise to get a kind of galaxy sort of multicolored effect going on. Make that go down into her hair there. As I said, I forgot to blend this side of her head. I'm doing my best to keep her fairly neat. I don't want it to be a bit of a cop-out. Like, yeah, I had a randomly chosen really small colour palette, so I'm not even going to bother trying. No, we are going to try. We're going to try and make this work. And we're coming into the lighter teal that I want to have happening up there, which was this turquoise colour. A bit of a wispy shape going on there. I'm going to try and play to that and make it look like our little galaxy. Okay, that's not going too badly. We will be having a fair few eraser shavings. Yeah, making a little bit of a mess with this colouring. But I think we can live with it. That's looking not too bad. So I'm going to bring in a white gel pen now. I'll just open up a new one here and I'll see if we can make that galaxy effect happen in the background. Or some sort of impression. There is maybe some stars, starry sky, some sort of nighttime effect going on in that background. Maybe a little twinkly star there. And yeah, I think that's working pretty nicely. Yeah, I think we can make that work. So I'll go ahead and shade the other side of that background there. Just gonna have to go over this part of her hair here with the white gel pen because we have brought the black in a little bit too much there, and we have actually gone ahead and fixed it. So yeah, that will have to be the white gel pen, but I think we can work with that. Just got time to be adding a few little stars this side. Make this up here a little bit of a star field, maybe. Very concentrated, tiny little stars there in the middle. So we have a bit of light going on there. We have the same problem here with her hand. That black has come over into her skin tone here. It's, yeah, very messy, very smudgy. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover that with the white gel pen. So you get some idea of what we are actually working with. That's not looking too bad, I'm thinking. And this kind of ribbon swirl here, I had starting off with the sienna colour, which I'm shading with the fruit punch red, is it? Passion fruit red. So we're shading that with the passion fruit red, and we're going to be coming up. This part definitely has not fixed as well as I would like. We do have some dust coming out there. May need another round of fixative once this is finished, but I do want this to be shading into the ochre colour. So This is a ginger I'm shading with the ochre colour. And we are moving all the way up into the yellow. So this is the coyote, I'm pretty sure is the name of this one. So we're going to add a little bit there, especially there where the black has come over into the actual ochre colour. Which, yeah, I feel a little bit bad because that is supposed to be more of an olivey green. But yeah, my challenge, my rules, right? Or maybe tidy up with the white gel pen. So stars would be glowing, technically. Over onto this kind of swoosh of ribbon or whatever it is we have going on the outside there. Yeah, that's not looking too bad. I'll just tidy up these kind of cherry type shapes we had going on here as well. Which also looks like I didn't blend too well. And we'll pop in these highlights on there. Well, I presume are cherries, I really don't know. May need to tidy up the chalk pastel. Make it look, yep, totally intentional. Honest, there we go, that's not looking too badly. Yeah, pretty happy with that so far. And it's a little bit smudgy here, which is kind of annoying, but that's not obviously not erasing because I have fixed it. Maybe we could be a bit daring and have our background come out around there to disguise that part of smudging that we do have going on. Necessity is the mother of invention, as they say. So yeah, we'll bring in the black and a little bit of the jade green, pop a couple of stars on there, and yes, smudginess. What smudginess? Might be a little cut there where I was actually off camera. Again, something I really do need to work on, you would think. Maybe a couple of years I will be knowledgeable about what my camera actually is, but I'm trying to keep the camera pretty high up so that the whole page can kind of be on camera and I can zoom in editing to see if that actually helps. But obviously I can't see the phone camera. when I do that I can't see the phone camera, so yeah, apologies. And just to make this part that we did up here to disguise that smudging, to make that look as if it is meant to be there, we will do it again. Maybe here behind these cherries. That is one kind of method I do use for sort of disguising mistakes or happy accidents, shall I say. There are no mistakes, right? Yeah, that is one technique I use for disguising them, is sort of do it again somewhere else on the page and then it looks as if it's intentional. So there we have another little area where our shading has come over the bounds of the boundary there, and because this one on the other side as well, it looks as if it's part of the picture, looks as if it's meant to be there, so we're all good. Okay, shall we move on to colouring our hair now? So our hair, we want to be the light yellow, which I am shading with this, I presume to be coyote. As far as I know, this pencil is coyote, so I'm going to use that mainly for my shading. Bring in the white gel pen as well, just to leave the colours to a minimum, really. I could bring in maybe the ginger, the ochre colour, to be shading into this, but I'm thinking, yeah, keep it fairly simple. Just shade with each colour is going to be shaded with one colour pencil. And I'm hoping this video doesn't run on way too long. I'm trying to keep things moving along as fast as I can after my little bit of a long-winded explaining my idea introduction. And I am enjoying so far. I'm really enjoying doing this one, so I will possibly do this method again, maybe for just off-camera colouring, maybe for other videos. Not entirely sure about that, but yeah, this is really fun. Behind our hair now, so we are going to be blending into that darker green. But we do want the dark green to also be for these cherry stems, so I thought what we could do for the kind of ombre blending here is bring in the turquoise. Moving on down to the actual jade green behind the cherries, which should give us a nice bit of contrast because those cherries are going to be more of a redder, a warmer colour to contrast with the green we have going on behind them. Okay, I'm bringing a little bit here behind the cherries and then leave the dark green for the stems. I do have a little bit of the yellow coming down into this green here. Whether by accident or design, I can't quite remember. I think I was just blending and that's just how we've turned out. So I'll bring in the yellow shading, maybe a little bit down into this green behind the cherries. And the turquoise, just to try and make that hair colour be blending into each other. This piece of hair would be behind here, so that would be darker. And we do have, yeah, a little bit of smudging that I've tried to turn into a shadow there underneath as I've been colouring. Maybe gone a little bit too crazy with putting all three colours, the yellow, the turquoise and the dark green here, to try and make that ombre look as if that's coming in. Make that look a little bit better. We would have more dark shading under here in the shadow and a face. Okay, and the cherries will be shaded with the passion fruit red. Of course, leaving a little bit of highlight, especially there towards where our light is coming from. Not sure if it would work bringing in maybe a little bit of the yellow, the coyote over there towards where the light is shining. I might try that. It might be a bad idea, but let's have a little bit of a go. Yeah, I think I can live with that. Definitely a good idea, I think, having the brown kind of sienna colour for the actual cherries rather than bringing it into her skin. It would be a lovely skin colour, I'm thinking, but keeping the sienna for the cherries, I think, has worked really nicely. And having a bit of an unusual skin tone with that teal green seems to have worked quite well. I'm actually going to bring in that teal green there on the leaves. And again, being a little bit daring, maybe the coyote yellow. Just to show we do have the light coming there, that's worked quite nicely. This little part of the stem would be a kind of browny colour, I'm thinking, but we'll make that into the green. Just add a little bit of a white highlight. And add a little bit of a highlight to this leaf if we can make the pen work. Come on, you're a new pen. And these kind of areas of shine, I'm just going to go over the line art with that white gel pen as well. Yeah, we're cooking, I think. That's working super well. And yeah, she did go through a bit of an ugly stage there. I wasn't exactly sure I would be able to make this work, but yes, we are motoring now, I'm thinking. Let's do her eyes. I always like to get the eyes done on a picture. Kind of make a picture sometimes, I think, if you get the eyes done. And then coming in with that coyote. Hello. Making a sort of hazel colour maybe. I think I kind of like it. Passion fruit red just for tear ducts. Nice. You can go very, very lightly with the black. Give a bit of a shadow under that eyelid. And the highlight in her eye is the heart, but we will add another little highlight to my usual shine lines there. That's cool. Yeah, that's working. Let's shade her lips. Maybe bring in a little bit of that coyote. Yeah, pretty sure it's coyote. A lighter side there. Yeah. Oh, she's starting to come together now. I love it when a picture starts to come together. I love it when a plan comes together. No, I love it when a picture comes together. Ideal. And her skin. Her skin I'm going to be shading with the turquoise. Looking at that, I didn't actually blend her eyebrows. Can I still? Yep, very slight. We can blend those eyebrows. Good. The skin I'm going to be shading with this turquoise colour. But yeah, I think that's working quite nicely as a shading colour. For this kind of a light teal we have going on. And as our light's coming from that side, we will have shadows from this hair. And I'm just using just the one colour for shading. I'm pressing quite hard in the shadows and then kind of letting off with the pressure as I'm getting further into the areas that would be the lighter parts of the skin. I have actually tried to do that with the pastel underneath as well, so we do have highlights in the areas where there would be highlights, so that's what I've tried to do anyway. And I'm thinking where I do need the very dark shadows, I could maybe bring in that jade green very, very, very slightly. I don't want too much of that coming in at all. But as we are part of the colour palette, I'm thinking that's fine. Although these colours have turned out to be slightly brighter, I think, than the original intention of that very retro colouring palette. And I did say I'd bring in a sienna for those freckles. We'll see how that will work in a minute. Just add a little bit of shading to her face. We want to shadow behind these cherries, I think. Slight interruption there for the doorbell. Can't remember quite what I was saying, but yeah, we do want her cheeks to be looking pretty plump and young looking there, instead of having it maybe looking a bit too hollowed out by accident by bringing in that shadow of the cherry. I think that's looking pretty good. I'm not entirely sure if I tried bringing in some kind of blushy cheeks there, that it might look a little bit odd bringing in the sienna colour, so I might leave it as is. Maybe bringing in a little bit of the yellow, coyote yellow, to give a hint of subtle kind of colour change on her cheeks there, but I don't really want to bring in that orangey colour. It might look a bit too jarring with that green, I'm thinking. So the yellow might work as a little bit of a blushy cheeks. Maybe a hint of it going on there, I'm thinking. That's not too bad. And again, in the very darkest areas, we can come in with that. The jade green, just make sure we blend that out. Or try to blend that out into the lighter teal. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. I did say I'd bring in the sienna for these little freckles. Let's see. That's working. Yes, I like that. I like that. Considering this was completely random, I had no idea which picture, which colour palette, even which magazine I was going to be colouring in. And yeah, I have to say I'm pretty happy with how these have turned out. Definitely might use that little method again, I think. And as I don't have a blender pencil at the moment, I'm just going to bring in the white to maybe blend out those freckles a teeny tiny bit. Don't want the colour to be too in your face. So I'm going to bring in the white there just to blend out those freckles very, very slightly. And this side of her face would be in the shadow, as we do have the 3/4 face going on. I need to bring in that dark green for the nostrils there. Deal, yeah. I do like the way she's going right now. This colour palette is really working for me right now. I'm very happy. Okay, I'll try and bring in a little bit of that yellow. A little bit of that coyote colour there for her cheeks on the other side to give a hint of the blushy cheeks. Slightly different colour. A little bit of this green in the darkest shadows right at the edge of her face there, although I do want to keep a little bit my usual highlight along the edge of the face that I do like to do. Might even bring in the white gel pen there, although the light will be mostly on this side, so we don't want to go too crazy on the opposite side. Again with a little bit of that darker green, jade green. I'll put the names and colours in the description, although I'm unsure whether that actually is coyote. I'm like 80% sure that one is the coyote, the one that I've been using to shade the yellow. Not 100% because I have been given the advice to put some clear nail varnish over the numbers and the colours on my pencils, but unfortunately for this set, most of my artists, especially the ones I do use quite a lot, that ship has sailed. There's not going to be much chance of me recovering the names and numbers on some of them. But if they are the ones that I use quite often, I am fairly sure what colours they are. And yeah, that one, I think, is Coyote. The colour on her face here isn't super smooth, as we were dealing with chalk pastels here, and this paper is not specifically made for chalk pastels. So I'm not going super smooth with my pencil shading. We're trying to keep the shading fairly rough here to match with the chalk pastel behind and have it all blend in together in theory. A little bit darker down there. Her lips maybe. Okay, there is some sort of shape to her face there, I'm thinking. I do usually come in along the jawline with a little bit of the white gel pen, which is showing up very slightly because we do have that base of the light teal pencil. Do this little bit above her lips there. Yeah, I have to say I'm pretty happy with that face. Okay, we're rocking. Let's move on to her hair now. Finish off her hair on this side of her face. And this I'm just going to shade exactly the same as the other side. I'm just going to use this Coyote pencil to bring in some strand lines, maybe a little bit of just plain shading. I'm going to blend it into that darker teal at the bottom using the turquoise and the jade green. So I'll catch up with you once I've gone ahead with that. Added a few white highlights, not as many this side, but I still want to add in a few, especially to tidy up these edges where the dark green has kind of smudged over there a little bit. So yeah, I'll catch up with you in a second. Just going to add a few the white highlights on this side, not as many because it is the side that is not getting the light. But I do want to add a few, especially to tidy up these edges here where I've been a little bit messy with my chalk pastels. But we can easily fix that with a little bit of the white gel pen, and to add a little bit of depth to show which piece of the hair are slightly more forward. I might bring in a very slight touch of that ginger where I was shading the ochre with. Still trying to keep things fairly simple, but I do want an extra layer of shade kind of on this side of her head because it is away from the light and it would be darker, and we do need to show a little bit of that kind of shape to her hair with the pieces coming in front of one another, and this little curl coming down the front here, which I didn't add any shadows into her face for. Oh, I am slipping there, but there we go. A little bit of a shadow for those curls there. Might give a few little highlights for these eyebrows. Blend those out a little bit. Yeah. There we go. Of course, we do have the black pencil. I'd completely forgotten about that, although I don't like to use black super much, as it does tend to make shadows look a little bit flat. If you go in for black straight away with your shadows, it does look a little bit flat, but as we are really restricted here, maybe it might be an option. So we could bring in a kind of cross-hatching style, very possibly. These shaded areas. To be able to bring in that black but not have it be too heavy. That's not too bad. Yeah, I quite like that. So I think moving on, we're going on to her skin. For the rest of her skin. For her nails, I think maybe we'll bring in that sienna colour for her nails. The passion fruit red, was it? Yeah, that's the one, passion fruit red. It's a very kind of sienna sort of red. Very warm brown. I'll give those a little bit of a highlight a little bit later. Again, for just shading their skin, as I'm only using the one colour, maybe bringing in that jade green for the very darkest areas, but just pressing harder in the shadows and laying off the pressure as we're blending into more into the chalk pastel. Very pale teal colour there. It's working quite nicely. I'll bring in a tiny little bit of that jade green, as I said, just to put this shadow behind her chin there, just to show that the chin is further forward than her neck. Maybe a little bit of shadow there. Oh, we do have some hair there that we didn't actually do. Need to be sharpening that pencil in a second. And I've had to overplay the shadow underneath this strand of hair here because the pastel went over the edge there of the actual strand of hair, so I had to cover that by being a little bit creative with my shadows. Just see if we can blend this heart a little bit more. Little white highlights here. Okay, maybe along her collarbone there. Okay, nice. Right, let's shade these cherries on this necklace with the passion fruit red. Again, mainly along this left side edge, furthest away from the light. Add in a little bit of that yellow kind of ochre, coyote colour. As I think it worked super well on the cherries and on her lips, it's worked pretty well, so yeah, we'll go with that. Add a little bit to this kind of heart tattoo she's got going on here as well. Okay, and white for the highlights. I'm just going over the line art of these highlights that were drawn in. Maybe adding a little bit around the edge if I need to cover a couple bits where I've been a little bit messy. And for this string that the cherries are actually on, I'm just going to do that with the black pencil. As I think, yeah, it's a very fine little string there, so I don't think the chalk pastel would have been able to get into there very well. Look at this string here. I think I'm going to go underneath her head there a little bit. So I'll bring in this jade green, and we'll have this string off her top here. We're going to have that of the dark green and the kind of teal blue, or teal green rather. It's more of a greeny teal than a blue. Just to separate that from the kind of strands, kind of look like petals there. We'll just come in with the turquoise as well. And in some white. Which technically isn't in the actual colour palette, but yeah, I can't really colour without having a bit of white gel pen appearing in there. So yeah, I'm going to bring it in and let myself have that. Her hair here, we're going to bring in the dark jade green. And the white highlights, because we are coming out over the top, above her fingers there, so we're going over her fingers, so we'll be highlighted. I'll add a little bit of shade to fingers with a hand here, just the same as I shaded her face. We might need some more white highlights there where our colour has actually smudged over the line, so some highlights to her nails. Make this look nice and shiny. I've just realised I paused my recording and didn't remember to turn it back on again, so I've no idea how far we actually recorded up to. But I've gone ahead and shaded her the skin of her arm there. I'm pretty sure all her face is on the camera, but I've shaded the skin of her arm there just the same way as I shaded her face, just with the turquoise colour. And I've started now on shading her top here. And I'm using the ginger colour, fading down more into the coyote sort of yellower colour as we get further down her top, as I do want to have a sort of gradient of colour happening there. Not as much of one as I maybe would have wanted. It could do with a lot more fading off with the pastel underneath there. But I'm coming in with this one. This is the passion fruit red for the very darkest shadows. I think I forgot to turn my camera back on again there. So it might be a little bit missing, but I don't want the filming to be super long anyways. Hopefully not too much missing there. And we just have this top left to do. And a little bit of finishing touches by shading this part of this kind of swoosh around the outside there. I'm not entirely sure what it is. Some sort of a frame, a swoosh around the outside, but I've done that by coming from this darker colour here through the kind of medium ochre colour into the light yellow, and I think that's worked quite well. So I'll just go ahead and add in the darker colours with this passion fruit red, just to pick out the pieces of this the sort of flower petal shapes that she's got happening with her top here. So we're just making sure that these petals, these kind of petal shapes of her top, are looking all separate from each other. If needs be, if we were really desperate, we could come in with the black, as I did mention, but I think my camera's actually stopped at the time. I don't like to use the black very often, but we are pretty restricted with our colours here, so yeah, black is maybe more of an option than it would normally be, as black was actually on the colour palette, and all I've really used it for is her pupils and the background of the sky there. Okay, let's add in a few highlights here with the white gel pen. Get into these petals, sort of forming the basis of a top there, and just using the white gel pen to cover up any smudges we have from the other colours crossing over into our yellow. More on this side than on the other, again, as this is the side that our light will be coming from. I realised I didn't add a shadow into this necklace here, so I'll try and bring in a little bit of a shadow for that necklace. That's the passion fruit red. I don't think that's really quite the right colour to be putting a shadow onto these cherries, so I'll just lightly go over with the black. Again, using the little cross hatching strokes that I used on her face. Hopefully that will be on camera. I used a little bit of a black as a hatching sort of stroke there on her face to give a little bit of extra shadow without bringing in solid black. See there, that is definitely an option. Give a little bit of shading without really going overboard with the black. Okay, so all that's left now is to shade this part of this swoosh that's going around the outside. I have no other words for it, I'm afraid, so it's going to be a swoosh going around the outside. Maybe make sure we add in a little bit of shading, shadows there behind these petals. We could even start bringing in a little bit of maybe the ginger to show that this is changing colours. It's changing colours up from the dark kind of colour we've used for the cherries there, heading on up into the more yellow colour towards the top. Lots of blending and kind of ombres going on here, trying to be a little bit creative with the few colours that we do actually have. Maybe I've gone a little bit too close to the colour of her top there. Maybe that could be a situation where the black does come in and give us a bit of a shadow in there. There we go, I'm pretty happy with that, I think, so I'll zoom us out a little bit and we'll get a look at the picture. Okay, I've zoomed us out there and I've put Our Lady a little bit over to the side of the actual camera there, because what I'm going to try and do is take a scan of the colour palette I was actually using in the book, because it's a little bit too small to be looking at on the same screen. I'm going to take a scan of our colour palette and kind of enlarge it a little bit and put it over here somewhere so that we can actually see the colour palette that we have used there and how we've used it. My scanner tends to wash out colours sometimes, but I've done the best I can there. And we have had to adapt that colour palette very, very slightly. We've had to change out the very light olive green and we changed that more for an ochre colour, which is the nearest I could get with the chalk pastels. But I think for using that colour palette, I think we've done fairly well. You can see it's at least based on that kind of colour palette. I've kept to the spirit of it, I think. I've done the best I could, and yeah, my challenge, my rules, as I've said a few times. I've had to adapt it, but yeah, it's in the main, it's there. And considering that it was randomly chosen, the magazine, the picture, the colour palette and the materials, I think that's turned out really, really well. I really, really enjoyed myself today. It was a little bit of a challenge with those colours and having to use the chalk pastels and the pencils together. It would have been a little bit easier if I'd have done just the main picture with the pencils and then brought the chalk pastels in for the background, I think. But yeah, not as interesting, not as much of a challenge, and yeah, might have been a bit more of a boring video. I figured why not go, yeah, really try things out and try using those chalk pastels as a base rather than my alcohol markers and see what we can get going on. It's definitely not as smooth as the alcohol markers. We do have more of the white paper coming through, especially on her face there, where I did try and erase to show that there would be highlights going on there. Definitely a lot messier than using the alcohol markers. A lot of the chalk dust involved, having to stop every now and then and tap off the dust into the rubbish bin at the side there. But yeah, definitely worth it. I think it's turned out really well. I will be giving it another blast of the fixative, really, the hairspray I'm using as fixative. But again, that is kind of down to your discretion whether you do want to use the hairspray as a fixative or not. I've not really noticed any yellowing going on with the pictures that I've sprayed up to about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I've not noticed any difference, but yeah, that's up to you whether you would be able to live with that if the paper did start to yellow a little bit. But yeah, hopefully that was a fun little video for you guys as well, a little bit of entertainment, maybe an idea you could do yourself, randomizing maybe your supplies or randomizing your book rather than trying to randomize everything that I did today, to have a total surprise of what I actually ended up colouring. And I could have ended up with an issue of the magazine that I didn't really like, so I was really pleased to get this one, which is one that I do actually like, and a portrait page that I actually rolled up, which is why I do love to colour. So yeah, rather fortuitous with my rolls today, I think. I used up a lot of my luck, but yeah, overall really pleased, and hopefully you've enjoyed following along today with me doing this little bit of a random challenge. If you have enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you so much for watching and following along. Take care everyone, and I'll see you in future videos. Bye!